Captain Alina Reyes tasted copper as blood trickled from her nose. The neural interface connecting her consciousness to the UES Paradox's drive systems always took a physical toll during dimensional transitions. Around her, the bridge crew recovered from their own symptoms. Lieutenant Park vomiting quietly into an emergency bag, Navigator Chen wiping tears of luminescent blue from her eyes, a strange side effect of viewing 11 dimensions simultaneously. Status report. Rise managed, her voice steadier than she felt. Drive core stable but showing anomalous energy signatures, reported Chief Engineer Wong through the comms. Probability metrics are all over the spectrum. According to the instruments, we simultaneously have a 100% chance of being here and a 0% chance of existing at all. Reyes smiled grimly. Sounds about right. The Paradox was humanity's first true faster-than-light vessel, though faster-than-light was a quaint understatement. The ship didn't travel through space so much as it rewrote the mathematical relationship between points in the universe. Distance became a suggestion rather than a law. Through the forward viewport, the rendezvous point came into view, a vast, crystalline space station belonging to the Galactic Concord, the oldest interstellar political entity in the charted cosmos. Their ships were elegant, symmetrical constructions of living metal and energy fields, expressions of 12,000 years of careful, incremental advancement. In stark contrast, the Paradox resembled a mechanical predator, all harsh angles and exposed systems, a patchwork of contradictory technologies held together by human stubbornness and duct tape. The drive core itself violated 3 fundamental laws of thermodynamics simultaneously. The navigation system relied on quantum consciousness imprinting that most of Earth's own scientists dismissed as theoretical impossibility. "We're being scanned," Lieutenant Diaz announced from Tactical. "Their systems are. Wait, they've gone offline. All Concord vessels have powered down their scanning arrays." Reyes nodded. "They probably fried their sensors trying to make sense of us. Open a channel." The main screen flickered to life, revealing a crystalline entity with fractal geometries that shifted and rearranged themselves in mesmerizing patterns. This was Exerthal, Chief Ambassador of the Galactic Concord. "Greetings," it projected, its translator rendering thoughts into sound. "We apologize for the technical difficulties. Our preliminary scans indicate your vessel exists in 17 spatial dimensions simultaneously. This is impossible. Yet here we are," Reyes replied with practiced diplomatic restraint. The crystalline ambassador's surface rippled in what the briefing suggested was agitation. "Our instruments detected materials in your hull that cannot coexist without mutual annihilation. We recorded energy signatures that would require the mass energy of multiple stars. We measured quantum states that..." The translation cut out momentarily before resuming. "The data suggests your vessel should collapse into a singularity, yet it maintains cohesion through means our science cannot explain." Behind the ambassador, other crystalline entities conferred in rapid pulses of light. One appeared to be experiencing some kind of crisis, its geometric patterns fragmenting and reforming chaotically. "Ambassador Exerthal," Reyes said, "with your permission, we invite a delegation aboard to tour our vessel. Earth hopes this will be the beginning of a productive relationship between our peoples." The ambassador's translation came slower now, as if processed through additional filters. "What manner of beings are you, to bend reality so casually? What demons have humanity unleashed upon the cosmos?" Reyes maintained her diplomatic smile. "Not demons, Ambassador. Just humans." Chief Engineer Marcus Wong couldn't decide which was more amusing, the visible distress of the alien delegation, or the way his engineering team pretended not to notice. The Paradox's engine room hummed with contradictory energies as Wong led Ambassador Exerthal and 3 scientific adjuncts through a carefully planned tour route. "This section houses our probability manipulation array," Wong explained, gesturing to a chamber where spherical objects seemingly phased in and out of existence. "It allows us to select preferred quantum outcomes rather than leaving them to chance." The alien's translation devices emitted a series of discordant tones before settling on an approximation of human language. Select outcomes. Quantum events are fundamentally probabilistic. One cannot simply choose. Wang shrugged. We found that's more of a guideline than a rule. The universe has preferences, sure, but it can be persuaded to reconsider. The crystalline entities vibrated in what the briefing materials identified as extreme distress. The smallest of them, Visi Null, moved closer to a pulsing component of the drive core, extending a sensor appendage surreptitiously. I wouldn't do that if I were you, Wang cautioned, but too late. The alien scanning device erupted in a shower of crystalline fragments as it attempted to measure something fundamentally unmeasurable. Wang caught a glittering shard midair, examining it with professional curiosity. Your technology assumes a universe with consistent mathematical laws. We discovered physics is more like interpretive dance. The rules change depending on who's watching and how they observe. Visi Null's translator struggled to convey concepts alien to their understanding. But constants must be constant. Universal laws must be universal. That's what we thought too, Wang admitted, pocketing the crystal fragment, until we started experimenting with dimensional folding. He led them toward a sealed chamber where space-time visibly curved around a central apparatus. This is where we get creative with the idea that 2 points in space must be connected by, well, space. The tallest alien, bearing ceremonial markings of a high physicist, emitted light patterns that required no translation to convey horror. You fold dimensional constants. This would collapse all spatiotemporal reference frames within parsecs. It did, the first few times, Wang acknowledged cheerfully. Lab 37 still exists Tuesday through Thursday, but phases into a parallel timeline the rest of the week. We're working on that. As they passed the quantum computation core, where processors existed in superposition, calculating all possible solutions simultaneously, Ambassador Exerthal's crystalline form developed hairline fractures. Your species has no fear, the ambassador stated, not as compliment but diagnosis. No reverence for cosmic order. You treat universal constants as inconveniences. Wang paused before the final chamber, where the heart of the paradox's drive system pulsed with energies that defy classification. Ambassador, humanity spent millennia being told what was impossible. Too heavy to fly. Too fragile to dive. Too earthbound to reach the moon. Every universal law was just another challenge. He placed his palm on the scanner, and the massive door retracted to reveal the impossible heart of the ship. A swirling maelstrom of contradictory physics, where matter became energy, became probability, became matter again in an endless, beautiful cycle. This, Wang said with undisguised pride, is where we broke the universe. And then we put it back together again. Better. Across 27 worlds, the Concord Scientific Ministry was already descending into chaos. Their grand unified theory, stable for 12 millennia, was collapsing in real time as sensor data from the paradox propagated through their networks. Riots erupted in academic centers as the universe they had cataloged, categorized, and thought tamed revealed itself to be far wilder than they had ever imagined. And in his quarters that evening, Wang added Visi Null's crystal fragment to his growing collection of alien technologies, wondering what impossible things they might teach humanity next. Grand Admiral Kesk's exoskeleton emitted a high-pitched keen as he absorbed the intelligence report. Kitten plates flexed and contracted in agitation, the biological equivalent of pacing. Around the obsidian war table, the 7 high commanders of the hegemony waited in tense silence. Replay the intercept, Kesk ordered, his translator rendering his clicks and whistles into the hegemony's common language. The holographic projector in the center of the table flickered to life, displaying sensor readings from the Galactic Concorde's first contact with the human vessel. The data streams were fragmentary. The Concorde had attempted to classify the information, but what remained was disturbing enough. These energy signatures, Kesk gestured with a serrated forelimb. suggests the human vessel is drawing power from somewhere else. Not our dimension, not our universe. High Commander Vrex, representing the cybernetically enhanced Morrillian species, interfaced directly with the data. His ocular implants whirred as they processed the information. Their weapons potential is incalculable, Vrex stated flatly. Their propulsion system alone could be weaponized. If they can fold space-time for travel, they could fold the sun into a planet's core. They could compress a gas giant into a projectile. Or they could be peaceful explorers, suggested High Commander Lintax, the lone voice of moderation in the hegemony's leadership. Kesk's mouthparts clicked in derision. The hegemony has maintained dominance across 3 spiral arms through technological superiority. Our warships are the most advanced in known space. Our weaponry defines the cutting edge. His forelimb stabbed at the projected image of the paradox. Until now, the Admiral manipulated the controls, shifting the projection to a tactical display of known human settlements. They've established a colony here, at Proxima Centauri. Still developing, minimal defenses. We strike now, while they're vulnerable. Based on what provocation? Lintax demanded. They've made no aggressive moves. Their existence is provocation enough, Kesk retorted. Their technology operates outside parameters we can predict or counter. If they can bypass conventional physics, what's stopping them from bypassing our defensive grids, our security protocols? The fundamental constants that make our weapons function. The War Council murmured in agreement. Prepare the eradication fleet, Kesk ordered. We will excise this infection before it spreads. 3 standard days later, the pride of the hegemony's military might emerge from hyperspace above Proxima Centauri. 97 warships, carrying enough firepower to reduce the small colony to atomic particles. Their sensors detected primitive defenses, minimal orbital presence, and approximately 8,000 human colonists. Pathetic, Kesk observed from the command bridge of the dreadnought Inevitable Dominion. Begin the bombardment sequence. Admiral, his sensor officer interrupted. We're detecting unusual energy fluctuations in Sector 7. Before Kesk could respond, space itself seemed to tear open. Not 1 breach, but 5. Massive wounds in reality from which emerge human vessels. Not on the outskirts of the system as expected from conventional FTL travel, but directly within the hegemony formation. Impossible, Kesk hissed. They couldn't have detected our approach. They couldn't have responded this quickly. They couldn't have. They're hailing us, the communications officer reported. The main screen activated, revealing Captain Elena Reyes of the UES Paradox. She appeared calm, almost regretful. Hegemony vessels, this is Captain Reyes. I'm required by Earth protocols to request your immediate withdrawal. Kesk's translator struggled to convey the full scope of his outrage. You face the combined might of the hegemony eradication fleet. Surrender your colony or be obliterated. Reyes sighed. I was afraid you'd say that. She glanced off screen, nodding to someone. Weapons free. Probability collapse authorized. What followed defied conventional understanding of warfare. The human vessels deployed weapons that seemed to violate causality itself. Missiles that reached their targets before launch indicators registered. Energy beams that split into thousands of parallel timeline attacks, hitting every possible version of their target simultaneously. Defensive fields that didn't deflect incoming fire, but rather rewrote the probability of it having been fired at all. As his flagship disintegrated around him, Kesk realized the terrible truth. The hegemony hadn't discovered a new adversary. They had encountered a fundamental reimagining of warfare itself. Their technological edge, honed over millennia, had been rendered obsolete in a single devastating engagement. His final transmission back to hegemony space contained just 3 words. They are beyond. The Galactic Concord's Central Forum was the pinnacle of interstellar architectural achievement. A vast spherical chamber suspended in space, protected by 27 layers of defensive energy fields and the most sophisticated security protocols in known space. No unauthorized vessel could approach within 10,000 kilometers. No uninvited being could penetrate its hallowed halls, which made the sudden materialization of Captain Elena Reyes and Ambassador Sarah Chen directly inside the council chamber all the more shocking. Elder Zivtox rose from the central podium, membranous appendages trembling with indignation. The ancient being's voice resonated through the chamber's perfect acoustics. This intrusion violates 17 sacred protocols. How did you bypass our security measures? Ambassador Chen, dressed in the formal blue of Earth's diplomatic corps, offered a slight bow. Your containment fields were inconvenient, Elder. We chose a more direct approach. Murmurs rippled through the assembled representatives of 5,000 worlds. Security drones swarmed toward the humans, but halted at a gesture from Elder Zivtox. We summoned you to answer for the incident in hegemony space, the Elder intoned. 97 warships destroyed. Over 30,000 lives extinguished. They came to obliterate our colony, Rice stated flatly. We defended our people. The balance of power that has maintained peace for 12 millennia has been disrupted, continued Zivtox. The Concord demands humanity share its technological advancements for proper regulation and oversight. Chen's diplomatic smile remained fixed, but her eyes hardened. Earth offers partnership, not submission. Our technology remains our own. The second Elder, a gaseous entity contained within an ornate vessel, drifted forward. Without compliance, the Concord will have no choice but to impose sanctions. Your worlds will be isolated. Your trade routes blocked. Respectfully, Elder, Chen replied, removing a small device from her pocket. We've discovered 7 different ways to manipulate gravity. Your sanctions would be difficult to enforce. Before security could react, Chen activated the device. Throughout the vast chamber, the artificial gravity field wavered. Council members found themselves slowly rising from their seats, ceremonial robes and appendages billowing in zero-G. What is the meaning of this outrage? Demanded Zivtox, clutching desperately to the podium. Chen increased the effects slightly. The Elder's grip failed, and the ancient being drifted toward the ornate ceiling among hundreds of other representatives. Partnership or isolation? The choice is yours. Chen offered calmly, her magnetic boots keeping her firmly on the floor alongside Captain Reyes. But understand this. The laws of physics that protected you from species like mine no longer apply. Behind them, a Concord security officer managed to draw an energy weapon, taking aim at the human delegation. He fired, only to watch in horror as the beam curved impossibly around the humans and struck a crystal monument containing the original Concord Charter. 12,000 years of galactic history shattered in a cascade of glittering fragments. This is what happens when you apply old solutions to new paradigms, Chen observed as the horrified council watched their most sacred artifact disintegrate. With a gesture from Chen, normal gravity returned. Council members crashed unceremoniously back to their seats and platforms. Humanity doesn't seek conflict, Rise added, her voice carrying throughout the chamber. But we won't be contained by laws, physical or political, that no longer bind us. Elder Zivtox, disheveled but still commanding, straightened to full height. The Concord has stood for 12 millennia. We have seen empires rise and fall. Species come and go. What makes humanity different from all who came before? Chen's reply was simple. We don't accept impossibility as an answer, Elder. Never have. And if your refusal to accept impossibility unravels the very fabric of reality, asked the gaseous second Elder, its containment vessel still wobbling from the gravity fluctuation. Rise exchanged a glance with Chen before responding. Then we'll find a way to stitch it back together. Better than before. With that, both humans activated devices on their wrists and vanished, not with the flash of conventional teleportation, but by simply ceasing to exist in one point in spacetime and resuming in another. The central forum erupted into chaos as the implications became clear. The age of predictability was over. The cosmic laws that had provided structure and security were now mere suggestions in the hands of these newcomers. And across the galaxy, species began to choose sides in what would become the greatest paradigm shift since the universe cooled from the fires of creation. Captain Reyes jolted awake to the insistent pulsing of her neural interface. The Paradox's AI had flagged an urgent development. She blinked sleep from her eyes as a holographic display materialized above her bed, showing 17 distinct sectors of space pulsing with anomalous energy signatures. "Computer, explain," she croaked, her voice still thick with interrupted sleep. 17 distinct species have initiated experimental physics programs attempting to reverse engineer human technology. The AI reported dispassionately. Probability of catastrophic dimensional instability, 67% and rising. Reyes swung her legs off the bed, fully alert now. The display zoomed in on a particularly volatile energy signature in the Orion Spur. The Ehrlich Dominion's experimental drive just imploded their research moon, the AI continued. Estimated casualties, 3 million. The Zen Collective scientists are experiencing temporal displacement. 14 researchers have aged 8 decades in the span of minutes, while 7 others have simply ceased to exist. Wonderful, Reyes muttered. They're going to tear holes in the universe trying to catch up. She was about to order an emergency briefing when a new alert overrode the display. A sensor buoy at the edge of explored space had detected something unprecedented. A non-human vessel utilizing principles similar to the Paradox's dimensional folding technology. Origin, she demanded. Unknown system. Designation XG2791. No prior contact recorded with inhabitants. Within 16 minutes, the Paradox had translated to the coordinates. They emerged in orbit around a copper-hued world circling a binary star system. The planet's surface gleamed with geometrically perfect structures, massive hexagonal formations stretching from pole to pole. "We are being scanned," Lieutenant Park reported, but not conventionally. "The scan is probabilistic. It's examining all possible configurations of our vessel simultaneously." Before Reyes could respond, a ship appeared alongside them, not through conventional space travel, but by gradually increasing its probability of being there until it simply was. The vessel resembled a perfect dodecahedron, its surface rippling with mathematical equations made manifest. "Open a channel," Reyes ordered. The main screen activated to reveal a being unlike any in the Concord records. Insectoid in general morphology, but with a complexity that defied simple categorization. Its compound eyes, thousands of perfectly arranged lenses, reflected the stars themselves. "Greetings, probability benders," the beam's translation matrix conveyed. "We observed your dimensional wake. Fascinating inefficiency. Beautiful chaos. We are the FRAC. I am Captain Elena Reyes of the Earth Vessel Paradox. We detected your technological signature and came to investigate." The being's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Yes. Similar principles, different philosophies. Your species breaks reality with hammers. We unravel it with perfect mathematics." Reyes raised an eyebrow. "You've developed dimensional folding independently." "Not independently. Observationally." The being's compound eyes adjusted, focusing with unnerving precision. "The ripples of your experiments propagate across 11 dimensions. We saw the possibilities you unveiled. We merely optimized them." Sensor Officer Diaz leaned toward Reyes. "Captain, their ship's engine signature is impossibly elegant. Where our systems brute force dimensional barriers, theirs persuade them to part willingly." The VRAC gestured with appendages that seemed to exist in multiple positions simultaneously. "We have been watching your species' entrance onto the galactic stage with great interest. The Concord fears you. The hegemony would destroy you. We appreciate you." "Appreciate us?" Reyes asked. "Your chaotic approach unveiled possibilities our ordered minds would never have conceived. Our mathematical precision has refined those possibilities into workable theories. Together, The compound eyes flashed with something that transcended mere intelligence. Together, we could transcend what either of us could achieve alone. The beam transmitted a data packet that resolved into a blueprint, a joint venture to create a vessel that existed in multiple timelines simultaneously. This is the possibility engine, the Vrak explained. A ship that does not simply travel through space-time but rewrites the probability of destinations. With your innovative chaos and our mathematical precision, we could create something beyond comprehension. Why share this with us? Rise asked, suspicion edging her voice. What do the Vrak gain? The being's compound eyes seemed to smile without moving. Your species breaks rules. Mine finds patterns in chaos. You ask why not? We ask, what if? Together, we could rewrite the universe. It paused, mandibles clicking softly. Besides, the alternative is watching 17 different species tear reality apart through clumsy imitation of your methods. Ray studied the blueprint hovering between them. The implications were staggering. A vessel that could exist in all possible configurations simultaneously, selecting optimal outcomes across multiple timelines. We would need safeguards, she said finally. Limits. Limits. The Vrak's translator conveyed something between amusement and confusion. Captain Rice, your species has already shattered the greatest limit of all, the assumption that universal laws are immutable. We are merely proposing to sweep up the fragments and build something new. As negotiations began between the human and Vrak delegations, neither fully grasped what their partnership would unleash upon the cosmos. Rise, shaped by human caution, insisted on ethical constraints and fail-safes. The Vrak, driven by mathematical elegance, sought perfect expression of theoretical possibilities. What emerged from their collaboration would be neither what humans intended, nor what the Vrak calculated, but something that would forever alter the relationship between sentient life and the fabric of existence itself. 3 weeks later, construction began in the neutral space between Earth and Vrak territories. The shipyard itself defied conventional understanding. A quantum probability matrix where components existed in superposition until observed into fixed states by the engineers working on them. Chief Engineer Wang watched in fascination as a Vrak mathematician named Tz'Act manipulated mathematical equations in holographic space. Where human engineers used physical tools, the Vrak shaped reality through pure mathematics. Equations so complex, they became tangible, folding metal and energy through abstract theorems made manifest. Your approach still confounds me, Wang admitted. We force matter to behave how we want it to. You persuade it with equations. Tz'Act's compound eyes shifted in geometric patterns. The universe is mathematics given form. We simply speak its native language. The insectoid being manipulated a series of floating symbols, and a section of hull plating reconfigured at the atomic level. Your species discovered you could break universal laws. Mine discovered there are no laws, only patterns waiting to be perceived differently. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the construction matrix. A human engineer had attempted to integrate a probability amplifier with a Vrak dimensional compressor. The combination had created a localized reality rupture, a 2-meter sphere where physics simply stopped. Wang rushed to the scene, finding the engineer frozen in time, half his body caught in the anomaly. Parts of him existed in normal spacetime, while others appeared smeared across multiple potential states. Can we extract him? Wang asked urgently. Tz'Act studied the anomaly with all of its compound eyes. His possible states have become entangled with impossible states. Fascinating. The Vrak began rapidly formulating equations. We could try to. Before the mathematician could finish, Captain Rice arrived, took one look at the situation, and acted with typical human directness. She grabbed a nearby probability inverter, adjusted its settings, and fired it directly at the anomaly. The rupture imploded, and the engineer collapsed to the deck, fully restored to a single state of being. He's stable, the medical officer reported, scanning the disoriented man. Tz'Act's mandibles clicked rapidly. How did you know that would work? Rice shrugged. I didn't. But a 50% chance of success is better than a 100% chance of doing nothing. The Vrak mathematician stared at her for a long moment, then made a sound the translators couldn't process, something between laughter and revelation. This is why our partnership will succeed, Tzak finally said. Your species is willing to act without complete information. Mine requires perfect solutions. Together, we balance possibility with precision. As they spoke, the central component of the possibility engine took shape in the quantum matrix, a core that somehow existed in all possible configurations simultaneously, each one available to be selected as needed. It was neither human nor Vrakan design, but something entirely new. And at the outermost edge of the solar system, undetected by either species, a perfect geometric shape began to assemble itself, drawn by the unprecedented manipulation of cosmic law. The Guardians had awakened, and they were coming to enforce the rules of a universe that could no longer tolerate such flagrant violations of its fundamental nature. Dr. Imani Okafor brushed dust from the crystalline surface, her headlamp illuminating glyphs that had waited millennia for discovery. The derelict station orbited a collapsed star in an unremarkable system. Unremarkable save for the fact that it shouldn't exist. According to all astronomical data, this star had never gone supernova, never collapsed. Yet here it was, a gravitational anomaly surrounded by ruins of clearly non-human origin. Temporal displacement, she muttered into her recorder. These ruins exist in our present, but they're stars from a future that may or may not occur. The paradox had detected the anomaly during a routine survey, a ripple in space-time, similar to those created by their own engine. Captain Rice had dispatched Okafor's archaeological team immediately, recognizing the potential significance. Making progress with the translation matrix, Okafor continued, her neural implant feeding pattern recognition algorithms into her visual cortex. The symbols began to transform, their meaning emerging through mathematical relationships rather than linguistic ones. These aren't words, she realized. They're equations, warnings expressed through mathematical proofs. As the patterns resolved, she felt her blood run cold. The glyphs told of a species the translation designated as reality breakers. Beings who had discovered, as humanity had, that universal constants were mutable. They had pushed beyond conventional physics, bending space, time, and probability to their will. And they had paid the ultimate price. The central chamber contained a massive holographic projector, still functional after what the dating systems estimated to be 80,000 years. Okafor activated it with trembling hands. The air shimmered, and a recording began to play, distorted by time, but still discernible. The beings resembled nothing in any xenobiological database. Their forms seemed to shift between states of matter, as if they existed partially in other dimensions. Their language was untranslatable, but the mathematical formulas overlaying the recording were clear. They had torn holes in the fabric of existence, and something had noticed. Captain, Okafor's voice wavered as she communicated back to the paradox. We need to reconsider the possibility engine project. These ruins, they're a warning. Explain, came Reyes' terse reply. This civilization, I'm calling them the precursors, they developed technology almost identical to what we're building with the Vrak. They could manipulate fundamental constants, rewrite probability, fold dimensions. Okafor swallowed hard. And then something answered back. Something that enforces the laws of physics. The recording showed horrifying scenes. Precursor ships being consumed by spatial anomalies. Planets phasing out of existence. Stars burning in impossible colors. A systematic elimination of a species that had dared to rewrite the rules. There are laws we were never meant to break, Captain, Okafor whispered. Not because they can't be broken, but because something enforces them. Aboard the Paradox, Engineer Wong was already witnessing the truth of Okafor's warning. Subtle at first, equipment operating without power, shadow movements with no source, chronometers running at different speeds throughout the ship. But now, as he stared at the empty corridor where Ensign Park had stood seconds before, the implications could no longer be ignored. Reality was fighting back. Ship-wide alert. Wam barked into his comm. Possible dimensional instability. All personnel, report any temporal or spatial anomalies immediately. The alert came from an observation post in the Kuiper Belt. Massive geometric structures materializing in perfect mathematical symmetry, their crystalline surfaces reflecting no light yet somehow remaining brilliantly visible. Not one, but dozens, appearing simultaneously across the solar system. "Senior staff to the bridge," Captain Reyes ordered, her voice steady despite the growing dread in her chest. The entities matched Dr. Okafor's findings from the precursor ruins exactly, the cosmic enforcement mechanism that had wiped an entire species from existence. On the bridge, the main screen displayed the nearest structure, a tesseract that somehow folded into three-dimensional space without losing its higher dimensional properties. It pulsed with energies that defied conventional scanning. "They're moving toward Earth," Lieutenant Park reported, his hands trembling slightly. Since his temporal displacement incident, the young officer had carried memories of a lifetime never lived. "And toward the possibility engine construction site. Open a channel," Rice commanded. "All frequencies, all possible communication methods." No response. Communications reported. But something is happening. The tesseract reconfigured itself, geometric faces shifting in perfect mathematical progressions, until it resolved into a shape that resembled a massive, multifaceted eye. The structure then began emitting radiation across the entire electromagnetic spectrum, not random, but precisely arranged in mathematical patterns. "It's scanning us," Wong observed, "or communicating." Dr. Okafor, recently returned from the precursor station, stepped forward. "Captain, the precursor records suggested these entities communicate through pure mathematics. They're checking our compliance with universal constants. And we're failing that test," Reyes concluded grimly. "Prepare the diplomatic shuttle. I'm going to attempt direct contact." Despite vehement objections from her crew, Reyes departed aboard the smallest vessel capable of dimensional translation. As the shuttle approached the geometric entity, space-time itself began to warp. The chronometer spun wildly. Forward, backward, sideways through dimensional time. Reyes felt her own body experiencing multiple timelines simultaneously. In one, she was aging rapidly. In another, reverting to childhood. In a third, her atoms were rearranging into unfamiliar patterns. Through the chaos, a presence entered her mind. Vast, ancient, and utterly alien. It introduced itself through pure mathematical concepts that her neural interface struggled to translate. "We are they, we or dia. We are he cosmic guardians. We or seat a is in human IV or zulcon and stayantis." The communication wasn't language but direct conceptual transfer. Reyes glimpsed the Guardian's perception. Humans appeared as chaotic tears in ordered spacetime, cancerous growths threatening universal stability. "We are not a threat," Reyes projected back, uncertain how to communicate with such an entity. "We are explorers, seekers of knowledge. Your species disrupetes fefumendamental coanastayantes. You boomerang chaos to order. You will be corrected." Through the painful mental connection, Reyes saw the Guardian's intentions. They planned to excise Earth from reality entirely, viewing humanity as a cosmic infection requiring quarantine and removal. The Possibility Engine project had accelerated their timetable, triggering an immediate response. In desperation, Reyes attempted something unprecedented. She mentally projected humanity's evolutionary journey through her neural interface. Earth's harsh environments, predators, natural disasters, and competition that had forged human adaptability and innovation. She showed how humanity had survived by questioning, experimenting, and refusing to accept limitations. The Guardian presence paused, its mathematical equations momentarily disrupted by a concept it had never encountered in billions of years of existence: creativity. UADAPT by changing the rules. This is not permitted. Rules maintain existence. But the universe itself evolves, Rise countered, drawing on everything from Earth's scientific understanding to philosophical concepts. Stars die and birth new elements. Galaxies collide and create new formations. Change is fundamental to existence. The Guardian probe delves deeper into Raya's consciousness, examining human art, music, literature, expressions of creativity that had no parallel in its mathematical existence. For the first time in its eternal vigilance, the crystalline entity experienced uncertainty. Error in CALCULATION. Humans create any new patterns. Nihu patterns should not exist. Recalculating. The combined human VRAC fleet assembled in Earth orbit, not in battle formation, but in a perfect mathematical sequence that the VRAC mathematicians had calculated would be aesthetically pleasing to the cosmic guardians. At the center of the formation hovered their greatest achievement, the possibility engine, a vessel unlike any before it. Where the paradox had forced its way through dimensional barriers, the engine existed in all possible configurations simultaneously. Its hull rippled with quantum uncertainty, forming and reforming as probability waves collapsed and expanded. To look at it directly was to risk vertigo. The mind struggled to process a ship that existed across all potential timelines at once. "The Guardians are approaching," announced Lieutenant Dias. Multiple dimensional ruptures detected. Captain Rice stood on the engine's bridge. Though bridge was an inadequate term for a command center that existed partially outside conventional spacetime. Through specially designed neural interfaces, she and her hand-picked crew could perceive multiple realities simultaneously. Their consciousness expanded to process information from parallel timelines. "All vessels, hold position," she ordered. "Remember, this isn't combat. It's communication." The cosmic guardians materialized around Earth's orbit, vast crystalline structures distorting spacetime itself. They had returned in greater numbers, their geometric forms more complex, more absolute in their mathematical perfection. Sensors across the fleet failed as reality itself bent around the massive entities. "They're beginning their reality erasure protocols," reported Wong from his station. According to the precursor records, this was the beginning of the end, the process that had wiped their civilization from existence. "Initiate the engine," Rice commanded. The possibility engine didn't just activate, it blossomed, expanding its existence across countless potential realities. The ship no longer moved through space, but rewrote probability itself, creating a cascading effect across dimensions. As the Guardians focused their erasure efforts on Earth, the engine shifted the probability of the planet's existence to 100% in all possible timelines simultaneously. The Guardians paused, their mathematical certainty disrupted. They pursued the engine as it danced across reality, but could not track a vessel that existed in all possible locations at once. "We have their attention," Rise observed. "Prepare for Phase 2. What followed was a dance unlike any in cosmic history, not combat with weapons, but communication through reality manipulation. The engine demonstrated the beauty of uncertainty, the elegance of change, the necessity of evolution. Where the Guardians erased, the engine created. Where they imposed order, it introduced harmonious complexity. Rise navigated the ship not through physical space, but through conceptual realms, directly into the Guardians' own consciousness matrices. Through the ship's interfaces, the combined human VRAC crew showed the Guardians something they had never witnessed in billions of years of existence: possibility. They showed stars being born from the chaos of nebulae. They showed life emerging from seemingly random chemical reactions. They showed evolution creating ever more complex and beautiful patterns from simple beginnings. They showed art, music, literature, the magnificent improbabilities that conscious creativity could produce. "We're not destroying your patterns," Rise projected through the ship's communication array. "We're finding new ones within them. We're seeing possibilities you've always overlooked." Through the engine's sensors, she perceived the Guardian's mathematical language shifting, incorporating new symbols, new concepts. They were experiencing wonder for the first time, the realization that rigidity was not the only form of perfection. One by one, the massive entities ceased their erasure protocols, their geometric structures reconfigured, becoming more organic, less absolute in their symmetry. The mathematical equations they projected now contained variables that allowed for change, for evolution, for the possibility that universal constants might themselves evolve over cosmic timescales. "We have the exis EDT maintain. Your existencadd's any do patterns. This requires reconsideration." The Guardians withdrew, not in defeat but in philosophical crisis. For entities born with the universe itself, whose only purpose had been to enforce unchanging order, the concept that change might be intrinsic to existence was revolutionary. As the possibility engine returned to normal space, the fleet watched in awe as the Guardians departed, not to destruction, but to contemplation. "Did we win?" asked Lieutenant Park, his consciousness still partially extended across multiple timelines. Ray shook her head. "We didn't win. But we didn't lose either. We showed them something they'd never considered, that the universe isn't meant to be static, that complexity and change are features, not bugs." "Will they return?" Wong questioned, already calculating probabilities. "Almost certainly," Rise replied. "But next time, I don't think it will be as enemies." Across the galaxy, the news spread rapidly. The species that had violated cosmic law had not been erased, but had instead engaged with its enforcers, had shown the mathematics of existence might be more complex, more beautiful than even its guardians had realized. The Galactic Concord, which had feared humanity's chaos, now sought its insight. The hegemony, which had tried to destroy human innovation, now requested alliance. Countless civilizations that had clung to rigid interpretations of universal law began to experiment, to question, to evolve. Humanity and the Vrak continued their partnership, not to build weapons or enforce their will, but to explore the new frontiers they had glimpsed through the engine. Realms where physics wasn't a limitation, but a language that could be spoken with ever greater eloquence. Captain Ray stood in the observation dome of the Paradox, watching Earth rotate below. A vessel that shouldn't exist, orbiting a planet whose inhabitants constantly rewrote the rules of possibility. The universe, she reflected, had not been designed for stasis but for growth, for species that would eventually reach the limits of established laws, and then, with creativity and courage, transcend them. "Beyond alien comprehension," she murmured, echoing the words of Ambassador Exer Thal from that first fateful meeting. "Maybe that's humanity's greatest gift to the cosmos, the ability to imagine what might be, rather than accepting what is." As if in response, a small crystalline structure briefly materialized beside the ship, a geometric pattern that incorporated organic elements, mathematical perfection embracing evolutionary change. A guardian, observing, learning. No longer an enforcer but a student of possibility. The universe, it seemed, was finally ready to evolve beyond its own comprehension.